Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how life is a dance. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that mind and body connected movement is vital to healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I created Dance to Heal Wellness featuring the Spotlight Confidence Formula and also authored the best-selling award-winning book, Outside In Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new ways to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Hello, everyone. It is my utmost pleasure to be having Tanya on the program today. And before we get started, we already spent a good almost 15 minutes chit-chatting, and I usually will do a very brief introduction, but I do want her to tell you all in her own voice what she does and who she is. Go ahead, Tanya.
Sure. Thank you. So, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I focus on women and somatic therapy. And I also do somatic coaching and mentoring and stuff like that. And I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner as well. Yeah. Mhm.
If my audience doesn't yet know the word somatic, y'all should know the word somatic by now. But just in case, will you define what your definition of somatic is?
Sure, that's a great question. So, somatic means of the body. It's really how our mind is really in our body, right? And so we often think mind and we just think up here, but it's in our body. And so when we do something like, dancing or somatic therapy, we're really going to the wisdom and the information that's in the body.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I never realized how many answers my body holds, right? I mean, we're of the generation. I just turned 57 last month. Um, Hopefully in future, when you're listening to this in the future, I might be in my 60s by the time you hear this one. And I recently discovered in the last 10 years that answers that I need about my childhood are still housed in my body, right, Tanya?
Oh, yeah. It's funny that you're mentioning birthdays. Yeah, it was my birthday yesterday.
Happy
And
birthday!
thank you. And it's funny because I feel like I happen to find this information pretty young because I was always dancing, like I was in ballet and I did modern dance and I choreographed and I felt like it was the avenue of expression that I had through my difficult, childhood, like adolescent years. And then it was when went back to Mexico and I was doing some inner healing work that I started really seeing like everything that's most effective is when I work with my body, like yoga or really conscious, like doing anything that is listening to the wisdom of the body. And I feel like I've had the experience of sometimes in the Mayan system and a lot of indigenous systems, we think of the spiral journey, right? It's not a linear journey. I feel like I've gone backwards sometimes where I'm like, I move back to the States and I kind of forget the wisdom of the body. And then I have to remember, like, oh yeah, it's all here. I'm not gonna get there through like analyzing it all to death. So uh
Absolutely. I thank you for being so vulnerable with that because you did move back to the States from, I think, Europe, right? Did I remember that
Also,
correctly? Yeah.
yes, I've moved a couple. Yeah, yes, I moved from Mexico first and then back from Europe. Correct. Yeah,
Right. And it's a different world out there outside of the US. I mean, inside the US is a different world from outside of the US.
sure is.
Y'all, because
Sure.
we do have audience members out in Dubai, India, New Zealand. And so I love, though, that the fact that we can all connect on how important it is to be in our bodies. That's why you're still here, my wonderful audience. And I'm beyond ecstatic, though, to keep talking and exploring about this. Tanya, you're a marriage counselor. You're a licensed relationship person. What does that mean for people who are either in unhappy relationships or even in quote unquote happily situated? Like I'm happily married over 30 years. I can't tell you that I'm 100% happy all the time with my partner, but we've been together almost 40 years.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, I will just say that the title licensed marriage and family therapist, for those who are unfamiliar, which a lot of people are, and I've tried to get this revalidated outside of the country, and it's like, how do I explain that it's like an outdated title for just a psychotherapist? We're psychotherapists. So it's not like I specialize in marriage or anything like that. It's just like I'm a psychotherapist. That's my license. So I think the way I try to relate to the title is like everything is relationship, everything. Whether it's with our own body, whether it's, with dance, with movement, with other people, with our children. It, and oftentimes our relationship with ourselves and our body gets mirrored in the outside or vice versa. So I think that's how I connect to the title of licensed marriage and family therapist because it's like, well, it's all that anyway. It's like our internal marriage, our masculine and our feminine, all of these things. So, yeah.
So my audience members,
Mhm.
some of you who've been here long enough with us, even from the very first episodes, have heard of in therapy, they talk about internal family systems where, there's parts inside of ourselves playing parts from traumatic events or other times and you felt out of control and you had to make up a story for yourself and you would take on the role of that situation or that person that you felt powerless about, right? For example, like when my husband and I are not getting along, we have to ask ourselves, like, are you present right now? Or is some child part of you present? And inevitably, it's always one of us didn't come into the conversation 100% in our bodies. So, like, an old part of us would come forward and pick a fight. And they would elicit, usually it was my husband not being present, just so you're clear. Because
Of course, of
he has long
course.
days.
Yes.
My husband is very disciplined. He gets up every morning at 4 o'clock to go work out and be at his desk by 7 a.m. Because we are here in Mountain Time, and often the companies that he's with, they start their days at 9 o'clock. That's our 7 a.m. So he schedules it so he's pretty accessible to his workday across the country. And by the time he and I are engaging, it's about 2, sometimes after 4 p.m. He's been up for a full day, 12 hours. And so he's tired. So he'll lose his presence in his body. And then a part of his will come out and start to engage with me. And I'll know immediately now, because I'm in my body for most of the day, I'll feel that he's not there. And
Mm.
sometimes it's not quick enough to realize, oh, he's not on purpose chewing loudly. He's just, something happened at work,
Right.
it's processing, so he's not actively there. So another, like his child part stepped forward because they thought I had to be in charge. And then and I'm like, well, you're chewing loudly. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. You're chewing, so I should record it and play it back to you because then that obnoxious teenage part of me comes out and it's like, if I was present, I would be like, hey, honey, you all right? How's your day going? Usually I'm trying to have some downtime.
Sure.
With other people who have bigger issues than one of the partners chewing loud, and the other one getting irritated, what are some things you would suggest for them to get in their bodies, or even do they work on themselves first? Because oftentimes it's always this, he said, bleh.
Always, always work on ourselves first, our side of the street, always first, right? Like, I think that's like a rule of thumb, a golden rule, stay in your own hula hoop first. Are you regulated? Are you grounded? And I think whatever is going on, something we can always ask ourselves is like, am I feeling safe? Because so much of our reactions and all of these things happen when we're not feeling safe. Um, even when we're not just like because you were describing, the sometimes we can get into that fight mode and we're like, we want to argue, but sometimes we're in freeze, right? And we're like just checked out or isolating or just want to be sometimes it's like we don't feel safe. So I love to do just a very simple thing that, if I can just
Please.
even just share right now, is just feel your feet on the floor. Just notice the feet on, yeah. Notice how steady and stable that is. And like you can even press into the floor a little bit. So much steadier than our thoughts and our emotions. And then, a next thing might be like feel your seat on the chair or whatever you're sitting on if you're sitting and notice what support feels like. to rest your weight. And then usually there's like already like a softening right there. And then, then that might bring enough space to notice, like I have some tension in my belly, or, my jaw is clenching a little bit. And it's like, okay, like how do I engage from a curious place rather than from like a judgy, like, oh God, there I go again, or like, there's that again. It's like, how do I just, I wonder what that's about? Kind of like bringing the mind down to the heart to like get curious and like an artist, like sketching. Just what's that about? I wonder. So those are some things, that are kind of just simple three, feeling our feet on the floor, seat on the chair, noticing what's going on and getting curious about it rather than like judgy about it.
That's lovely. I love that reminder. I stand for all of my interviews, whether I'm the host or the guest, because it reminds me to stay feeling my feet. Otherwise, I would disengage from my lower body because I'm seated. Yeah.
As a I was working as a virtual therapist a lot, and I mean, it really takes a lot. That Zoom culture, really, a lot of us are living in. It's a lot of those like little micro breaks of just checking in. One of my teachers, Abby Blakesley, I mean, an international teacher and has all these kids and is married and has a lot going on. And she was always like, it's just those little micro breaks of like, how do I notice, just stop for a second and notice, like there are my shoulders. Like, maybe do a little self-touch, a little self-contact, like put my hand on my wrists. We're using the wrists all the time for, just bring a little compassion, like active care to myself and notice, how does that warmth feel? How does my hand on my heart or my hand on my belly feel right now?
That's exquisite. Audience members, if you feel a huge difference in that reminder to slow down, make sure that these links are below in the description of this episode. You can go back to it. You can opt into Tanya's newsletter. Even better, she does allow people now for a limited time to book an initial consultation with her. And you just need to go to her website at Tanya Dantus, which is TanyaDantus.com. Make sure you go there and grab your time with her, because if you're feeling any inkling towards it, I always urge you to move on it now before you convince yourself otherwise. Tanya, if someone doesn't even know if they feel safe, how do we find out?
Sure. So I think that's a really great question because when our nervous system is regulated, we tend to pendulate. So our nervous system goes from little moments of like, I'm more relaxed to like, I'm more like, oh my God, I've got stuff to do. And like, oh my God, the to-do list. And like, but it feels manageable. It feels like that's when stress is good. It's a part of life. You're up to stuff, so you're kind of pendulating back and forth. And but then you have a moment of like, like now I can relax. Now I can, okay, I finished that thing on my to-do list. But when we're something is going on with our nervous system is when we get stuck on or off. So when we're stuck on, when we're hyper, or we're in that state, it's like anxiety. It looks like anxiety. It's the rumination, the nonstop chatter, monkey mind, the tension, often like belly or jaw, or you definitely the neck and the shoulders, all of that stuff. It's going to look like tension, can't fall asleep, can't go to sleep, keep scrolling, looking for distractions. You get the world of it. As soon as I'm talking about it, we all feel it a little bit, right? Like we know what that's like. So that's often a good indication that we're not really, especially if it doesn't stop or we feel like it's out of control. It's like an avalanche that's just keeps going and we don't know how to stop it. That's a good indication of like, I'm not finding safety and grounding. I'm kind of stuck. So We need to tend to ourselves to be able to learn. Sometimes we need to learn how to regulate. Sometimes we need another person to co-regulate. That's why some people, we instantly in their presence, we feel more relaxed because we're co-regulating. Or a pet. A lot of people have pets that help them co-regulate. So, finding your ways to regulate and when we're stuck on off, I want to mention it since I already said that we can also be stuck on off, is it looks more like depressive symptoms. And it's just like we don't want to, we're unmotivated. Nothing sounds good. We just want to be in bed. We'd rather not, go to that dance class. We'd rather not, reach out to that friend or text back. And that can also be a sign of like, what's going on there? Why some part of us, it's usually some part of us is not feeling safe, tended to, grounded. Yeah.
I also want to remind audience members you can be very high functioning and also be in like a fawn response where you can't say no. You don't know what your real true yeses are. And so on the outside, we all look, I'm one of those. I never knew I was in perpetual fawn. I couldn't tell people this is not for me right now, and I would say yes all the time. So on the outside, I would look like I had control, but the internal was that I would feel the anxiety that Tanya was talking about. And I wouldn't necessarily talk any faster. I would actually get slower in my speech, but my thoughts were racing internally. If your energy is the rushed feeling inside, or even if her asking you feel your feet and rest in your seat and you've never felt it until just now hearing us slow down our speech, you're just like me.
And I want to say, Jenny, that a lot of people listening might have the experience of when I do ask, like, feel your feet, sit down, and like tune into what your body is saying, it can feel really scary because there can be a history of sexual abuse or some other kind of some kind of maybe big T trauma or like a trauma that feels like it doesn't feel safe to go in my body. And in those cases, I really do suggest seeing some kind of practitioner who can hold space and help guide you in a way that does feel safe. Because we need that sometimes, right? We were just talking before we got started about all the programs we've done and, all the, yeah, yeah, sometimes we
Yeah.
need someone to help us out.
And so, the title of this episode is The Beautiful Yes. And it's this weird balance, my wonderful audience, where, starting to learn to be present in your body opens you up to feelings that you may have been denying. And at the same time, how do you start tuning into when it's a yes for that therapist or that community where you can feel safe to heal, right? What are ways that you have someone learn how to know when it's a yes for them?
Oh, I have a really fun exercise I love to do with people. Yeah, it's really simple, but it's really powerful. And I think, if you are listening to this podcast, you can use this and just pause it to really go in because it's nice to have someone guiding you through it. So all it is just, I invite you to stand up wherever if you're driving, obviously come back and listen later. But, take a moment, tune into your body and think of all the things that are a hell yes to you. Like, and I'm not talking about mixed bags because people think like children. No, no, because sometimes we have like mixed feelings about our kid. Like, I'm talking like a hot bath on a, like a cold day with like nice essential oils, tea, like the feeling of walking on wet grass or sand, like things that like 100% light you up. Think of a few of those things, feel what that feels like in your body. Notice, maybe a couple words to describe that for yourself, like maybe it's expansion or warmth. And at the count of three, I invite us all to say yes to that feeling. So let's do it, Jenny. At the count of three, one, really feeling that yes to all those things. Two, and three,
Yes.
yes. Awesome. And so just notice that. And if you're doing this at home, I invite you to do that like a second time if you can like replay it for yourself. But for the interest of time, I'm gonna just like have us just shake it off. And then, yeah, just kind of, okay, that was interesting. And notice how that was for you to say yes. And then we're going to do the same thing for no. Not as fun, but like I invite you to think of things that are like, you can think of like world issues, like children going hungry, or, like things that you're like, no, this shouldn't happen, right? That you're really passionate about. It's easier sometimes to think of those things. And then notice how you that feels in your body. Notice, maybe a place you feel it in your body, a texture, kind of a feeling. And at the count of three, once again, we'll say no. One, two, three.
No.
No. And then notice what it's like to say no to that and what comes up afterward. And all of that gives us a lot of information because some people have it's really interesting, but some of us have a harder time saying yes than no, or vice versa. Some of us have a harder time saying no than yes, right? And it's like that already is very informative. Um, and some people, it's like, I don't know, it's just tuning into that lets people remember that you already know what you're a yes to and what you're a no to. You already know that. Like, it's a matter of practicing it and like a muscle kind of exercising it. And I really encourage people, well, two things, to practice that with just small things because some of us right away want to go to the big things like tell my husband this, and it's like no, 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 no. Start with things like I'm at the restaurant and I asked for no mayo on the tuna melt and they brought it with mayo. Can I say, hey, I'm sorry, but I asked for no mayo, can you please have them do this again? Like things that feel uncomfortable but like are not life altering because those are the places where we get to practice. Some people say to me, "Oh, those things that I already got." So, okay, so then you need to push a little, like where, maybe there's a friend you've been holding back in telling her something about, your relationship. So maybe taking a stretch and having, writing a text, right, having that a conversation with that friend.
I love it. I love it. I love that. This is so congruent with what we have done in the past with muscle testing for our yes and our no's because um, I know for sure sometimes I'll feel a yes and my body's like, no, this is not for you right now. Like, because my mind wants it. I'm completely convinced through whatever was happening with the sale, and I'm going off of fear of missing out. And my body's going, you don't need it. You don't need it right now. It's going to put so much stress on your schedule. Say no right now. And then other things have been this resounding, I think I want to try it. And then my body's like, yes, jump on it. It's a very strong yes. And it's lovely to have another way of having you, my amazing people out there, practice feeling what that feels like. Because honestly, I remember years ago there was a beloved dance teacher in the fusion belly dance community. Her dance name was Elisheva, and she later on passed away from a like brain cancer. It was heartbreaking for the community out east. Anyways, Elisheva was famous for doing groundbreaking storytelling in a way where she could become the subject that she wanted to dance about. And I remember taking a workshop with her. It was a $75 workshop back then. That's a lot, y'all. And for 3 hours, we pretended to be animals, and I was so pissed. I was like, I love you, but girl, like 75. I mean, that was before she became ill. In retrospect, I would have paid her $300 for her time. Okay. She was that priceless a time with her. At the time, I wasn't used to being in my body and feeling feelings at all. So to be given permission and asked to play, so alien to me, Tanya. I'm like, $75? Like, I
That's actually like something I do in my group programs. Like that's exactly the kind of body movement stuff. I will have people be like animals or like it's like where the therapy with archetypes marries the movement. It's like we have these archetypes that, women have been taught to play off, and it's like the soft, the cute, the quiet, the koala, the panda. But it's like, what about the leopard and the snake and the lion? Like, can you embody that and that's a lot of the work I like try to translate with the somatic experiencing. I get very passionate about this. But it's like a lot of women suppress their anger or just healthy aggression, right? And without, if you cannot access your healthy aggression, you cannot set boundaries or speak up for yourself and take what's yours.
Oh, did you hear that, audience? We're allowed to have aggression. I mean, permission to feel aggrieved, right? Really important, folks, because I know for sure I had so much anger that I realized I had to really focus on after my breast cancer. I never acknowledged it. I One of my favorite things I was scolded for was you have as bad a temper as your dad. That's what I grew up with. It's a trigger thing to say I have a temper like my father because my father was explosive when he eldest son sent out of the house at 10 to live with other people in their hallway because of schooling because in Taiwan they lived in the rural parts of Taiwan. And back then only select few children were allowed to go to school. You had to test into it, and he was one of the few people who was given the opportunity to. So he had a lot of feelings he never worked through when he became a father. And it was, yeah. And so to be excused of that type of anger, which I never was allowed to express to begin with, a lot of buildup. A lot of us, especially if you're female presenting, right, growing up, that's not tolerated. And especially like little boys are allowed to have temper tantrums, but not little girls.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you're naming is a lot of people have experiences with a parent who expressed abusive anger or like explosive anger or anger in some way that they were not in touch with their healthy aggression in some kind of like they weren't going to a dance class to like act like a leopard, right?
No.
So it's like when we learn to move and express it like that, then we can show up and have a conversation when we're not explosive because we're not taking that beach ball and pressing it underwater and then it's not coming up and exploding, but rather we're, constantly just playing with it. So we know how to interact with others in a way that's assertive, not, toxic anger. Like it's not taking it out on someone. Yeah. And I mean, it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress, but I don't want to give the impression that you like do this work and like, I'm so perfect at it.
Well, I
I
just have,
know.
yeah. Folks, we're like Tanya and I, we've been doing this for most of our lives, and we still have overwhelming days, right? And we've learned to give ourselves grace, and we want to give you that grace too, right? You shouldn't need us to give you permission to give yourself grace, first of all, right? If you're trying this and then in the next 30 minutes something happens and you blow steam, that's great because while you're learning to be more in your body, you still have to let off the steam because that pot is getting filled with more and more of these feelings you haven't been processing, right? So sometimes it's okay as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, right? And doesn't really damage too much of your relationships because, like humans put up with a lot, right? If we really, really love someone and we're with them in a relationship. For me, I just love that you have people doing play in the archetype of animals because that's immediate. Like, all right, so just to go back to a point you were talking about, like having pets as a way to help regulate your nervous system. We at one point had 13 cats. That's the level of regulation we needed in our house. It's not just because I'm a crazy cat lady. Like, we had a lot of things behind the scenes that all four of us were processing at different levels. So if you average it out, it's only 3 cats per person.
I love the math with that. I love it. I love it. Yeah. I
We had
mean,
3 dogs, so it's 1 dog per person. So 3 cats and 1 dog per person. That's not a lot,
works.
right?
Whatever works for you. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, a lot of people have animals for support. I think I learned seeing working at the IOP, like seeing so many people come through. And yeah, I would say that was like one common denominator. People get pets. It's yeah,
What
I
is
love
the
it.
IOP?
It's an intensive outpatient program.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was doing occupational therapy, I had been in a lockdown unit during a rotation when I was getting certified and licensed as an occupational therapist. And it was like for youth. And
Okay.
it's amazing what's available back then, But that was before the then president decided to defund all of that in the 80s.
Got it.
80s and 90s.
Yeah.
However, my point is, if even if you don't have the insurance to pay for help, right? There are now amazing apps out there with therapists that are affordable for you. It's really important if you are even thinking there's even a tiny bit of stuff you have to analyze that's really heavy. There are a lot of licensed professionals out there very, very equipped to do this, right?
Yes.
Some people be like, dance is my therapy. It's not, folks. Can I just be clear? If you're processing things and one, you either have a teacher, a dance teacher who's not trauma aware, okay, folks, there are a lot of us out there like looking to self-soothe with dance classes, and your instructor isn't experienced with dealing the breakdown that can happen as you release feelings out of your body while you're dancing. That's really clear. Okay, be aware of that. And two, sometimes because like when we do belly dancing, I realized that when I was doing belly dancing, because we hold a lot of memory in our pelvic core area, and belly dance is all about the core work and the pelvis, and I released so many emotions, and some of my first teachers were not equipped to handle it, and they led me down some bad paths. So I'm
Yeah.
being straightforward truth talk, folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're saying it's like dance can be therapeutic, but the facilitators are not always trained therapists or trauma-informed practitioners. And that's an important distinction. And I've run into that so many times being in even coaching programs where it was supposed to be, let's work on our sacred feminine or something. And then it was like, okay. And then I worked on what came up and the person could not hold it at all. And it was almost like re-traumatizing because it's like you're vulnerable and you're leaning and then they let you fall completely. And then you have to deal with all the billing stuff and all the, trauma of having paid this person. I think, we're at a place in the I know there's listeners from all over in the United States. It's not regulated yet. Like coaching is not regulated, but you do have to be a licensed practitioner to do anything that's like trauma related, actually. And it's not always enforced. As a very, like, I'm a trained practitioner, and I've had experiences where I've seen practitioners that it sounded like they were because they had a lot of certificates, but it is, when you're licensed, you answer to a board and you're trained a lot on ethics and you have to answer to some of those guidelines. And if not, you can have your license revoked. So I think it is important. It's something I used to not give too much thought to, but I think it makes a difference. And of course, I don't want to say like not all licensed professionals are going to be amazing, and not all people who are not licensed are going to be bad. But it's like I think using your discernment and making sure that person is trauma informed and understands these principles, whoever you're working with.
Absolutely. I was part of a speaking program. They didn't know what BIPOC stood for. Okay. And it's okay, audience, if you don't know it, you're not required to. If you're a dance instructor or a development program, if you don't know what BIPOC stands for, please educate yourself, okay? Because there are a lot of us out there who identify as BIPOC. We may not look it, but we're well aware of the fact that we don't blend in mainstream. And there's a lot of microaggressions and things that tell people we don't belong, and we don't want you to be a part of it if you're a coach. Does that make sense? Because and it goes for everything though. Like if you're a woman or you're a single father, right? There are a lot of out of the mainstream big bubble. We're all outliers in some way. All right? Seriously, there's very few of you that are in the majority in every single thing. And we want to make sure that if you're seeking help, you're going to someone that's in your best interest, not in their best interest. And that's what I love that. So remember, you're going to practice what it feels for your yes and your no. You're going to remind yourself or practice your muscle of the muscle testing in yourself, right? So your body can be in alignment with what you want to do. Any last parting words for my people, Tanya?
Yeah, I did want to say in that exercise of the yes and the no, I also guide people through the last one would be, I don't know yet. I need more information. Because sometimes we feel like it's all binary and like we have the yes or no. And it's like, wait, there's some things that it's, I don't know yet. I need more time. So I learned that from my teacher, Ariel Giretto, and I think that's like a good last one to notice what it feels like when you don't know yet and you need more information because you were even saying like there's things you gave examples of like sometimes we need to ask more questions or we need more time to process, and that's okay too. And sometimes that's the hardest one for people
Yes.
because I don't know if can feel very vulnerable and it can feel if a lot was demanded of us as kids, it can feel like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, I don't have the answer. Like, please, that's scary. So to learn, that's good information to have and to practice feeling exposure therapy of what does it feel like when I say I don't know, and how can I make myself feel safe when I do express that?
I love that. And let's be clear, family, because you're family, everyone, including Tanya. The I don't know means that sometimes it's not for you at this time, right? Or it can be, I don't know if you understand how bad it is for you. So be really clear that whenever you get a yes or a no, you are still going to get to the point where you're comfortable asking a clarifying question of your body. All right, because that's really important. There, oftentimes when I'm having a like a weekly check-in with my family, we'll have questions that they ask because they'll muscle test like, and my son was like really resistant to it, and then all of a sudden he gets to the point where he already knows the answer before he muscle tests because he's a belly dancer, he's very in touch with his body, right? However, he was like realizing, oh, sometimes if I ask the question one way, it's a yes, but if I ask the question a different way, it's a no. And so he'll do clarification questions and then he'll get the correct answer, right? I love that. Tanya, that's amazing. All right, my wonderful audience, we will have to have Tanya back because I feel that we just started to like hit the tip of the iceberg, and I'm gonna keep this one episode, Tanya, because usually we'll split them in half when they go over a certain time. This is worth a listen, like a one-time listen to people, and we just have to have you come back again in the future. Thank you.
Aw, I'd love that. I'd love that. I love talking to you, Jenny. So, and your wonderful audience, of course.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Dance to Heal podcast with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of inspiring triumph and learn more ways that you can heal yourself. To work with me and continue your journey, visit danceandheal.com. Are you ready to move?